Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Reasonable Doubt, brought to you by the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association here at Houston Media Source. I am going to be your host tonight, Justin Harris. We've got hopefully it'll be a kind of a fun show. I've got three exceptional lawyers here by most people's standards. Other people categorize them different ways, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. Right here to my left, I have Miss Dayla Spears. Thanks for joining us, Dayla. I've got Kobe Dubose. How are you doing, Kobe?
I'm doing well. Great to see you, sir.
Likewise. And Mr. Neil Whetstone. How are you doing?
Hi, pretty good. How y'all doing?
Good. Thanks for coming on.
Cool.
So, let's see. Well, today's Thursday. Last Friday, I was sitting in my office, and was it you that texted me first, Kobe?
I don't know.
I got this text message.
Maybe.
With this, I don't know, what is it? It's like a new DA chart categorizing defense attorneys.
Yeah, I think
That's
so.
how we kind of characterize it.
Tiermaster, I think, was the app that was used to make
Tiermaster?
That's a funny name, all things considered.
T-I-E-R or
Yeah.
T-E-A-R? Mark, do we have that graphic?
Give me a second to find it.
Okay. So I think we've got a copy of what we got, and it's spread. I don't know. I got it then after Kobe sent it to me about an hour later. I got it from 6 or 7 different people. I got it sent to me by two different people who aren't lawyers. There it is right now. So we got that last week, and it's got all of my guests here listed at the very top under a category of, what does that say? Satan incarnate. And then the second category down is burn in hell. And then there's another category that someone thinks is definition of ineffective assistance. Then there's a not nice term used for the next category. And then can't see the last two, but I think we've got like annoying but lovable and perfect angels.
Yes.
And then pictures of all of those people up there are defense attorneys, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And see, the three of y'all, and I intentionally asked y'all to come on because y'all were like put in that top category of Satan incarnate. But we got Kobe, Neil, I'm sorry, I don't know the third gentleman.
David Lee, great lawyer.
David Lee, Kate Farrell, Dayla, and then Grant Shiner. I mean, all very nice, well-respected people, very good lawyers, but somebody created this chart and thinks y'all are the devil, like, reborn on earth? Is that what incarnate means?
I think so. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know what that means.
I'm not religious enough either, but what'd y'all think? Dayla, where were you when you got that? How'd you find out about this?
Actually, Neil sent it, and I was like, whoa, why am I in here? I didn't even know what it was. So basically, I just thought, well, I guess I'm glad I made the list because I'm doing my job. So that's how I basically took it.
Took it as like a badge of honor?
Yeah.
Okay. Kobe, what about you?
Well, we received it in our office from a source that I don't even know. We thought it was funny. I mean, look, I guess if you're Satan incarnate, you make the job of the prosecutors a living hell. That's what Satan does, right? And I knew that. They didn't need to tell me that. I was proud to get A1 billing among the incarnate
You were the
Satans.
first picture, I think, on the also.
top draft pick,
Yeah,
the Cam Ward.
It might have been alphabetic. No, because the W is right there.
But I want to point something out. It's weird because
Yeah,
if
'cause I would
Grant
say-
Shiner should be like on the top right, they didn't need to make that a second row.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So I'm wondering if there are two people they took out. I've got a lot of questions. But we took it in stride. We thought it was funny in regard to us. I didn't think it was so funny to be, slandering or libeling people as ineffective that aren't, which is a legal claim, whether some of those people on that list may have been or not. Some of them certainly haven't been found ineffective. Calling people dumb fucks, I think is what the word was.
Say that on public.
Well, we can't say it. He said we could say it. We just couldn't show it. Oh, he said we could say it. Well, I apologize. I'll pay the fine. That didn't seem very nice, but I don't know. I mean, I took it as it's my job to make their job hard, and I don't shy away from that. So, badge of honor, I think, is a good way to put it, but I could see where other folks wouldn't have been so amused with it.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Where were you when you got it?
So I
Where were
was
you when you heard the news?
right. So I was actually at Glorious with my team, our office, and someone had sent me a text, and I was like, "Oh wow!" And we were just eating lunch, and I just showed all my colleagues, and we just kind of laughed at it. I think this list isn't really about us. I think it's about the cowardice and the unprofessionalism of the Harris County District Attorney's Office and the people that are there. Really isn't about us, right? You know, I definitely take it as a badge of honor, like my colleagues here do. This is an adversarial system. And, you know, at the end of the day, my last name is on that bar card. And I want to do the best job that I can because, you know, I think in the back of my head all the time, what if this was, you know, this is somebody's cousin, this is somebody's family member. Would I let myself represent me? Would I let myself represent, you know, people in my family? And so that's the mentality, you know, that I have. I think it's funny, I think it's childish, you know, but I'm just using it as motivation just to continue to get better, continue to be in the same breath with, you know, people like Kobe, people like De La. You know, I've only been practicing a year and a half, so like it's just a blessing to be a part of this profession. You know, hopefully things like this don't, you know, kind of vitiate what it means to be an attorney. But you know, I can only speak for myself and go about my business accordingly. So yeah.
So you were out at Gloria's in Midtown with some other assistant public defenders?
Yes.
So y'all have teams, like litigation teams of attorneys, right?
Yes.
Y'all, and I admire that. You're in private practice, right? You're in
Yes.
PD's office? Okay. I admire the PD's structure of those teams. Y'all are close knit. Y'all have like matching shirts and y'all go like do activities out together
Yeah.
and stuff. And look, I mean, it's funny.
No, we do.
They
We
do.
We do.
Matching shirts.
Well, we have like
Yes.
office shirts.
Oh, okay.
They have
Which
t-shirts.
do match.
Yeah. No, y'all have t-shirts, don't you? Damon's team had a t-shirt.
Yeah, like that's kind of more team specific. So when Damon ended up leaving to go to private practice, everybody had their shirts and all that. So yeah.
But I think that's great. But you were because y'all become very close knit in that group, and that those things are big morale boosters and they're good for building community.
100%.
How did the rest of your team take that? Because they weren't on the list, right?
Yeah. So
How did the conversation change? Was it literally just like oh, that's funny, and we put it away and we don't talk about it anymore? Or did that become the topic of conversation? Because it has been, right?
Yeah.
The topic of conversation around the courthouse all week.
yeah. So
Right?
two
What
of
was
my-
that like in a group of lawyers at lunch when that comes through?
Yeah. So two of my colleagues, Noah Feldman, Hannah Frank, are in the burn in hell category.
Right.
And so basically, by the time we got back to the office, you know, our higher ups, you know, were on the phone, basically having a conversation about this. It circulated pretty quickly, and everybody was kind of just, you know, big upping me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I didn't really think too much of it, again, because this is indicative about who they are. But it was sort of kind of a laugh, and I think it also motivated some people to be like, you know, I want to give them hell, you know, too. So I think it really was more of a rallying thing. It was something that people were like, that motivated people, rather than, you know, I don't think anybody was ashamed. I'm not ashamed or anything like that. So yeah.
My grandma didn't like it.
So what about that? I mean, the thing is, the way we take it is one way, but like,
Right.
my kids are gonna grow up and things don't go away.
I mean that. No, we were fortunate enough to win a trial this week, which I thought was important to win this one, particularly in light of what happened last week. But Damon Parrish had actually posted a little comment, said, "Oh, the devil at work," and my grandma responded, "Don't you call my grandson the devil." And she didn't get it. She doesn't
Right.
understand that that's a
An
good
inside joke
thing,
and- right.
or that, you know, that's actually a compliment,
Right.
which, you know, that's the tricky thing about this when this gets posted publicly,
Right.
Particularly for all of the categories. I think it maybe sends a bad message about just the general professionalism of this very serious business that we're engaged in, the business of people's lives and freedom. And
Well, so here's what I want to talk about. Neil kind of hit it on the nose. Kobe, you kind of alluded to it and then kind of started to hit more on the nose. Dela and I kind of let y'all do it. But we don't really know where this came from, right? The big speculation is that it's someone in the the Harris County District Attorney's Office put it together, right?
Exactly.
And I understand that, but I have thought about this some. Mark, can you put that back up and scroll to the bottom? But the last category on there, perfect angels, and all credit goes to my partner, Dr. Randy McInerney. She noted this, but the last category of perfect angels is, she made her think that this might have been put together by a court staff, by a non-attorney court staff. Because her point was, those attorneys, whether you know them or not, they're all very nice people. I think all these people are nice people. But for a prosecutor to characterize a defense attorney as a perfect angel, it's kind of a bizarre category.
It is.
Right? Like, even if a defense attorney gives a prosecutor everything that they want, agree to every single plea bargain, I still don't know that the prosecutor would call them a perfect angel.
Sure.
They might make that other category annoying but lovable. So the perfect angels, that Randy wasn't wrong. She made me think about that, and I was like, I could see court staff characterizing certain members of the defense bar as annoying but lovable, as Satan incarnate. They want some of us to burn in hell, and they think some of us are perfect angels.
But do you think they would do ineffective assistance?
That just feels very lawyerly.
Yeah,
It does.
And I will
that's
say
not-
perfect angels is kind of a contrast to devil incarnate, right? It's the balance there.
Okay.
I thought,
So in just as like extremes of the spectrum?
yeah, and one of the things you are kind of saying without saying here, most court staff are women. We don't know who made this, but some of the discussions that were had around our office was, well, can we narrow down male or female? And someone said, well, this is a meme that you would see on Reddit, kind of codes male. Males create these lists for all
Color-coded.
kind of, well, there's a generator. It's usually done for, the Barstool guys will do NFL teams or whatever,
Okay.
the tiers.
Okay.
But then some of the language in it was maybe female coded. I mean, perfect angels,
Sure.
lovable but annoying. I don't know that a male prosecutor is saying that, which of course then leads to the question of why in the world would we think this was done by one person? These little,
Right.
they're pack animals over there.
True.
Right.
I mean, they try cases together. They go
Ride
to
the
lunch
elevator together.
Yeah, they're pack animals. So the idea that there's some different sort of influences in this, but sure, it could be anybody. That's the thing. We assume it's the DA's office for various reasons.
Sure, that was my initial reaction too. And
Yeah, I think for one, I have a good relationship with a lot of the court staff coming into this profession. It was, don't piss off, your court staff.
Right.
And I don't even directly file a lot of my stuff. I have an administrative assistant that does that. Number two, I actually don't think that court staff would take the time out of their days. The majority of court staff have children, grandchildren. I don't think they would take the time to
do this.
You don't think they want to look at pictures of us when they're not at work?
No, I don't actually.
Well, Nathan Beadle.
I think you're right. Hang on, we're gonna talk about Nathan Beadle being on there in just a second.
Well,
Sorry, keeping my
that
hand in
complicates
Neil's shot.
things, right? That's sort of the fly in the ointment here.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So right there, under the burn in hell category, which depending on how you look at it, it's the second best category or the second worst category. I'm in there, but Nathan Beadle, right there, first on the second row, and who sat in this chair Kobe's in a few weeks ago. Why is that interesting? Why do y'all think that's interesting? I got my own things. I'm just trying not to talk the whole time.
I don't know who he is.
'Cause he just
I
looked
can't
there.
speak to anything. Like, I have no idea who he is.
Okay, fair.
He was over like misdemeanor, for a while.
He was
a
the king of the
yeah,
misdemeanor division
yeah.
at the
Okay.
DA's office, right?
For 8 years.
Yeah. Sure.
And where does every DA start out? In misdemeanor.
Right.
So there's not a prosecutor that works for Harris County, unless they were hired in the last 5 months, who's come into work in that office in the last 8 years that Nathan Beadle didn't give a job to.
Right.
And he spent 5 months in the defense bar, and he's in that category.
And frankly, I love Nathan, but I've seen him in court. He hasn't been a defense lawyer long enough to have
Yeah, in a
really
trial
done
setting.
anything to piss anyone off.
Yeah, no.
Been working up the DWIs and things of that nature, and
I think because
there's
he
nothing.
left them.
Yeah.
So
Maybe
that's-
because he
that's
left them?
clearly why it's kind of like it has to be.
That seems to make it, in my mind, go back into the district attorney's office has some answering to do
Yes.
camp, not court staff, because I don't know what Nathan Beadle would have done to make anybody that angry unless they are somebody who's, like you said, Dela, maybe mad he left
Right.
or mad about something he did when he was there. They have a personal thing with him.
Right.
I mean, they're also pretty easy to piss off. So, like,
Right, I was going to say, we were talking about this before the show, and on the show too. If this comes from a district attorney, I don't disagree with you. I think this speaks more about them than about anybody who's on here.
Sure.
Right.
Right? Another comment that we talked about with the court staff, but we have a split screen now. That other people mentioned is this took some time to put
I
together.
was just going to talk about time.
Yeah, go ahead,
Because
please.
it's I think just today, somebody was like, well, you didn't tell me that I needed to rip them. I'm like, wait, is it my job to inform you to do your job? So it does give me like, how do you guys have time to make lists, but not time to actually do your job?
And that's not just a list. I mean, that is coming up with the categories, the colors, then going and finding all of our pictures.
Right.
Well, you know, I got news for you. That picture is from Hawaii, but Jeff Ross, this is all from Jeff
all
Ross.
Jeff Ross's website.
Jeff stopped using that picture of me several months ago. And that's the weird part. If Jeff posts a picture of me today, it's me and Brian Garris standing in my office. And it's been that way for 5 to 6 months.
Wait, I didn't know
So
we
where
could
do
ask
you think
Jeff.
they got it?
I didn't ask Jeff to change my picture. He decided he wanted to. I don't know why. Yeah.
okay, I know.
But that throws a quirk into this for me, which is like, wait a second.
So maybe this is like before 3 months ago?
Yeah, like maybe this has been a work in progress. Obviously, Nathan is a new addition, but it makes me wonder if this has been a sort of ongoing thing, or maybe they just pulled an old picture off of Google Images. Who knows,
And
right?
frankly, this is a better demonstrative than I've seen any DA bring into actual trial.
Like it's a
Which I
trial
think is
exhibit
funny. And to
or a
Dayla's
voir dire
point-
presentation?
Right. And to Dayla's point, you know, they're always complaining about their caseloads, but
Right.
you have enough time. I mean, like, honestly, how miserable do you have to be to, like, actually surf the internet, tier, like, people, like, find their headshots? I mean, it's just pathetic.
Look,
Yeah.
and they don't even know where my soft targets are. If you want to rip me, you should put thinks he's the best lawyer in town, but only wins misdemeanors. If you don't even know where my soft targets live, bud.
Don't tell them. They're going to see it. If you think they're not watching, they are.
Right? They can hit them where it hurts.
Yeah, it's recorded, Kobe.
And another thing that's really funny about this is typically when you see this, it's like, you know, the top tier is the S tier, A tier, B tier. It's like a backhanded compliment almost, the way that you're using this chart.
Oh, yeah. Everybody except for the one in the yellow category, everybody who's
Right.
pretty much on this, even the ones who are like, I'm annoying but lovable. All right, like, you know, like I'm on
Everybody
here,
wins,
and
right.
except for that one category. And
Yeah,
like,
except for that one.
And I disagree with that. Those are all four very intelligent people, and they know how to do good jobs in court, and they do. But yeah, I think that the time put in this goes back to, I think, the character of the person who did it, and the hate, the feelings that they've got, you know?
Like, yeah, I couldn't tell you 5 DAs. Like, you know what I mean? In terms
Yeah.
of like figuring out what they
Right.
look like. Like, I'm actually pretty surprised that we consume this much of their lives.
Yeah,
Like, it's kind of sad.
What is it they like to say in sports? Like we live rent free in their
Rent-free.
brain.
Yeah,
Like,
fair.
you know, like so. Yeah, it's getting to somebody. We've talked about this in singular though. We've talked about this before the show that there's also some speculation this wasn't just one person, right? Because if you make this, you want to show it to somebody.
Sure.
And then when you show it to a colleague, they're going to be like, "Oh, I got people you can add." Right? And then, was it on the show or before the show? You noted like the first category looks a little bit like
On the
uneven.
show, it's uneven. There's no reason for Grant Shiner to be down
Can
one.
you go back up, Mark?
Yeah, it's weird.
That's true. It does look like they took 2 spots out.
Well,
Did they move them around?
I don't know that like attention to detail is the strong suit of the persons making this. But yeah, there's no reason. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So, if you're Sean Tier or Lauren Byrne, Chief of Staff, or Tiana or Cheryl, anybody over there who's brass, or Mark Carter, we were talking about Judge Carter before this and the ethics czar of the DA's office. Do you do anything about this, and what, and why, and what?
I think absolutely that you do something.
What do you do? Or maybe why do you think absolutely?
Because first of all, I'm wondering if somebody had intent to release it, which they probably did, intent for it to be. I mean, I don't think they just made it for their giggles, like privately, because it's been released. So I think that yes, somebody needs to actually do something. Like you said, there's the ineffective assistance of counsel portion, Which just doesn't seem right that these people are, labeled. You don't know who's seeing this. Maybe now maybe we're just not seeing it as attorneys, but now maybe clients are seeing it. And so now they have this stigma in their head that these people don't know how to do their job.
Well, that's exactly. Ineffective assistance means you're not doing just basic lawyer work.
Right.
You can call me dumb. You can say you want me to burn in hell or that I'm the devil. But don't say that I'm not doing basic lawyer work.
Well, are they going to agree to writs on the cases from these folks?
Is there an legal implication with that
Sure.
category?
If I have a district attorney of the state of Texas making this, are we going to send out Brady notices to the people represented by the 6 gentlemen on there and agree to writs? Is that what we're doing?
What if a justice on the Court of Appeals got this and someone from the DA's office is in there arguing against ineffective assistance and it turns out it's one of those
I do
one of those
writs.
folks.
Why is this not an exhibit in my writ? Yeah, it could be. God knows we've seen writs that have been filed this year that have had stranger exhibits than that.
And that exhibit would be telling the justices, my opponent who's about to stand up here, the respondent in a second, agrees with what I'm saying.
Sure.
Right.
Because this came from his office or her office.
This goes to a bigger point. A lot of times they don't think about what the hell they're doing. The bigger implications, the seriousness. This is not a joke. Right. It's not a game. These are people's lives. There's people's lives on that list to the extent that what you're putting on there is not true, but there's people's lives that they're representing. It's not funny.
Right.
If these people have been ineffective, then it's not a joke at all, right? And the fact that they believe it's a joke speaks to some of the immaturity that we deal with all the time. The defense bar can laugh it off to some extent because we have thick skin. That's the nature of our game.
Right.
We have to. But that doesn't make it any...
Or try to turn it into a badge of honor or something like that.
Right.
But it still doesn't change what you're about to say.
Change that this is just a sign of some deep immaturity and misunderstanding. And look, I watched Sean Tier at a CLE last Tuesday. And I like Sean Tier. I would consider Sean Tier a friend. Talk about how he was going to try to restore civility, particularly in the misdemeanor division, because he said during the old administration he would walk into these courts and say, what on earth? How are these prosecutors relating to defense lawyers? They're being disrespectful to judges. And he said that his priority was going to be restoring some of the comedy, not comedy E-D-Y, but comedy into these courts and some of the professionalism, and with the idea that that would help us all work out our cases better and then build the trust in the DA's office and all the things that he would want to do. This is a step back, obviously,
I'd say
from
so.
that. And to the extent that it is, it conflicts with his real stated priorities in that division. And I hope he'll understand that.
Yeah, I would be embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for them. It's like secondhand embarrassment. It's a disgrace to the bar. A lot of the real world implications that Kobe's talking about, and I'll kind of say this again and kind of answer more of your question, but telling people to burn in hell. Right. Calling people Satan incarnate.
They'd never say that to somebody's face in court. It would be highly inappropriate.
Exactly. That's why I can't really take it seriously. But those have implications. Like if someone's mother saw that, if someone's father saw that, it's just extremely disrespectful. But I think it's, like I said, it damages the bar. It turns our profession into some burn book material.
Right.
And it's just unfortunate, and what it gives the appearance of, at least in my opinion, is you're doing your job based on personal vendettas rather than based on what the law says and what we were all sworn to do. We all took an oath when we got into this. And I think this violates that oath. And I think it's just a disgrace to the profession. It's also pitting other attorneys against each other as well, which is something I don't believe that the defense bar will be doing.
I want to come back to the pitting attorneys against each other because I heard something that somebody in the DA's office said where they thought this came from. So you agree with De La that you think that this is something that the DA's office should investigate and they should take action on?
I'll be honest. I'm not a defense attorney, or excuse me, I am a defense attorney. I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not a district attorney. I genuinely don't care what they do. I'm not expecting anything to happen from this, but I can only speak to how this affects the profession, and hopefully the DA's office is looking at it from that perspective.
Right.
But I'm not going to speak to what they should or shouldn't do. I'm not a DA. I don't care to be a DA. So that's for them to, figure out.
Okay, that's fair. We were talking a little before the show. There are some people who've done, armchair investigation and think they've kind of narrowed down maybe a division that this might be from, or even particularly names. We tossed some names around before the cameras and the mics came on, but we're not going to do that publicly.
No, I'm not a prosecutor. I don't accuse people without evidence.
Hey, there you go. There you go. But this is something that I don't disagree with you. I think that they should look into this. I'm also not a prosecutor and have never been and never want to be. But I do think that if Sean Teare says what he has said, right, that he wants to raise the bar of decorum, and he wants a better relationship between the defense and the prosecutor's office, which I think I remember 8 years ago when Kim Ogg came in too. But then this is a step away from that.
Sure.
Right.
Right? And
At a minimum, it's a teaching opportunity.
Yeah.
People do stupid stuff.
sure, I'm not saying everybody
And
necessarily
I don't
lose
want
their
somebody
job
to
over
lose
this.
their job or their bar card. But this is
As long as everything else they're doing is on par.
This is at minimum just a teaching opportunity.
Right.
And a big one.
But
It's
could you
super
imagine if it
inappropriate.
was the other way around? Like, so
Oh, yeah.
if it was the public defender's office.
Okay,
That
so
made
thanks,
it.
that segue.
What
That
a
was
seg.
so perfect.
She did it.
So somebody told me that, and I was given a specific name where this came from, and I didn't talk to him, so I'm not going to say it, but that someone very high up in the district attorney's office floated the idea that his belief was that this was created by the public defender's office. Now, he said that when he was like, because there's no public defenders on there. But there's 3, right?
Yes, including
Yourself,
myself,
yeah,
and-
Hannah Frank,
And Noah Feldman.
yeah, Noah Feldman's in there.
Yeah, I think,
And hang on,
yeah.
I laughed at that. I pointed out that there were some public defenders on there.
Right.
And then I said something that I'm not allowed to say on TV that sounds a lot like what Kobe said or didn't say earlier, because the audacity of the district attorney's office potentially producing this, and then you want to try to drive a wedge in the defense bar, that's your response to this? That really set me off. And whoever that was, you know who said that. I know too. You need to reevaluate what you were trying to do as far as bridging the gap between the defense and the prosecutor's office. The near standing ovation that Sean Teare got last week at the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association's annual banquet, that was great. Kim Ogg got one 8 years ago also. So if 5 years from now, you're like Kim was 3 years ago and you decide you don't want to come to our banquets and the relationship is what it is right now, remember back to this episode and this thing and decide and think about what Neil said, what Dela said, what I said, and what Kobe also said. We look into this. It's a teaching moment. Okay? And if it's genuine that y'all want to bridge the gap, raise the level of decorum in the courts, and have a more respectful bar treated to the defense, this needs to be sought out and turned into a teaching moment. That's my take on it.
You're going to earn yourself a promotion there, pal.
Well, I do want to speak to,
Yeah,
like,
please.
the whole public
That
defender thing.
really upset me to hear that somebody
Yeah.
in the district attorney's office was floating that this was within the defense bar, like we're going to turn on each other.
Yeah, I mean,
do that enough.
When people show you who they are, believe them.
Right.
That type of response doesn't surprise me, sort of the counter intel thing. But here's one thing I can say. The reason why I'm so honored to be a part of the public defender's office, we don't spend our time, executing personal vendettas, making burn books, burn lists, whatever. We talk about the law. We talk about representing clients. We talk about going to trial and being successful at trial. That's what we focus on. Like I said, I couldn't name 5 DAs for you. What our office does is we, I think, are providing white shoe, white collar representation for people that can't afford it. I'm honored to be a part of this office. It's given me this opportunity to be a part of this profession and to practice at a high level. But I can't imagine any of my colleagues would ever even think about, we don't even have the time
To do it.
to make something like this. So that allegation, it's unfounded. I do believe it to be false. And again, it's just indicative of the cowardice and the unprofessionalism of, many people in that office, in the Harris County District Attorney's office.
I can't even imagine why an assistant public defender would form opinions about whether they think other defense attorneys should I mean, if a public defender made this, if any defense attorney made this, there'd be a couple prosecutors in one of these categories, right? Like,
Yeah.
shame on the person that floated that idea, at least for floating that idea. Otherwise, I like the person.
True.
So anyway, I'll kind of back off that a little bit. Okay, so
Other than that, Miss Lincoln, how was the play?
that bothered me, you know? I mean, like, you guys want to do this kind of thing, and then it rattles some of us. It's seen as a badge of honor by others of us. It upsets some of our mothers and grandmothers.
Right.
And maybe our kids when they get older and they dig this out somewhere. And then you want to, like, say it's the defense eating each other. Like,
And also, I've only been practicing a year, and I'm not important enough.
Well,
just based on that.
I'm highly impressed. Like, right, both y'all,
But
right?
I mean,
Even
both
within my
of
own
you
office,
guys
like I'm not
even-
that important.
You even spoke about how like somebody can look at this two different ways. So say if it was somebody who didn't really understand and they're like, oh, clearly we don't need these people at the top representing us. So they can look
Right.
at it. You don't know how somebody would take it when they're looking at it. So that's why I definitely second you with that. I think it's definitely a teachable moment. And I feel like if it was any other way or if it was came to found out that it was somebody that was on the defense and this was something about a prosecutor, they would definitely make it a teachable moment.
I agree. And I think that definition of ineffective assistance, those people have a defamation suit against whoever
Right.
made this, if it does end up on a public forum or something, because that's defamatory in my opinion. But I'm really impressed. I mean, I see the red category as a badge of honor. I'm impressed that y'all are on there. And how long have you been practicing, Dela?
I think about the same as you, maybe like 2 years.
Man,
2,
y'all
3.
are just, so who'd y'all make, y'all can figure this out. Who'd y'all make mad?
I make them all mad, man.
I make
I mean,
a lot
it's
of-
it's pretty easy to piss them off. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get into that.
Yeah, I just said we're not
on
gonna
this-
name names,
on this
but-
broadcast. But you know what I can say is, you know, I try to be aggressive with my filings of motions. You know, I think sometimes cases get to a point where negotiation is over with, and I just give them an ultimatum, like you give me this or I'm setting it for trial. Like I said, it's you're dealing with a lot of people that are kind of walking on eggshells to begin with. I'm not going to say that every prosecutor is like that. I think there are many level-headed prosecutors, a lot of them that are actually reasonable. And I'm not going to, you know, blow up the spot just because you're doing your job. But that seems like what is happening with us.
Right.
So
That's
yeah.
exactly the point. Like, it's not our job to protect them. It's our job to actually protect our clients. So that's what I take serious. Like, I'm sorry if I can't be your best friend. I'm here to do something, and that's what I'm here for. I'm here for my clients.
I'm a pretty docile alligator when you get to know me. I'm territorial, but I'm pretty docile. But look, I've got friends in that office, like we all do.
Yeah.
I've had some that I've been texting about, you know, with this sort of, you know, they had a laugh about it and said, hey, I didn't do this. And once people get to know me, obviously you see that I don't have horns and a tail. But I think this will come with the territory. You know, you guys have, I mean, I've worked with Neil a little bit. Haven't had the pleasure of working with you. We shared a client and spoke about his trial case that he wanted some insight into assault trials in certain courts. So I've seen the work he's done. I think this just comes with the territory. If you're going to do good work, you're going to be hard to deal with.
I mean, I'm looking at the other three that are on there, and I don't
Grant
know
Shiner.
Mr. Lee as well, but
Yeah.
Kate and Grant would say exactly what y'all are all saying. I mean, that's the thing is, y'all are saying the same things, which are the state has a burden to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I have a job to my client, and my job is, let's see if the state can prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm not going to, and RIP calls, by the way, that's a district attorney office policy.
Right.
If you go up to like Montgomery County and you say RIP call, they might look at you like you're,
What are you talking
What are you
about?
talking about? Yeah.
yeah, like that's a DA. So when the DA is looking at you like, you didn't tell me I was supposed to do the RIP call, like I didn't invent RIP call, your office did. Like, but yeah, we're not supposed to do their job for them, right? I mean, and if we do, we can't do this job anymore.
That's it.
So
Right.
I don't know what, somebody got to, the commonality is here is that all these people on this list got under somebody's skin, like you were saying, and this became a personal thing, or several people's skin.
Yeah.
And
Or it was
they had too much time on their hands.
right, definitely that. And also it's it's like what Mike Tyson said, right? Everybody has a plan until they get hit in the mouth.
Right.
A lot of these DAs have never really lost. They've never really had to face defeat, or they've maybe underestimated their opponents and it didn't come back to bite them. And I think in our situations, when you're trying cases and next thing you know, your supervisor shows up and next thing you know, this and that, and you lose, that's a gut punch to a lot of people, regardless of profession, right? And so I hope this person, definitely needs some therapy. This is indicative of somebody that kind of probably needs some help a little bit.
Talk through a little bit.
Yeah,
Right.
man, because it's a profession, and if it gets this personal, maybe this might not be for you, or maybe you need to go talk to somebody. I'm not even trying to throw shade or anything.
Right.
I legitimately believe that. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you on that. Like, if it's a job that I walk out of the courthouse someday and it's all weighing down on me, and I have to remind myself, I have to come do this again tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to my office where I'm just going to start digging in deeper into cases that's going to frustrate me. So if you can't, I don't know, it takes a weird person or a special person
Right.
to be able to do this, but you got to kind of let it go.
Yeah, and frankly, my father. The funny thing about this, I grew up in the church. You know what I mean? Like went to Bible school, Sunday school, all of that type of stuff. I'm not a Bible thumper. I'm not going to proselytize to anybody. But I think that's also funny about the list. They actually don't know anything about us.
Your spiritual or religious background.
Right, right. They
They're
don't.
going to assign the worst label of spiritual background to you.
Right, and
Yeah.
frankly, in terms of letting it go, I lean on my faith. It's hard to say I don't take my work home with me, because
Sure.
we all do if we
Right.
want to be good at this. But again, that's other people's issue. It's not me, and I think this is an opportunity for all of us to just continue to do what we're doing and show what our character really is.
You wanted to say something, no?
No, I think I've said everything there is to say about this.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
honestly,
I'm the same way.
I had a new law clerk that started this week, and I went in Monday, and I had to explain to her. That was the awkward thing. I said, "You just started. This is our first day. Some people are going to come up to me today and call me the devil and Satan. They're going to be defense lawyers, and you're not going to understand what's happening.
Right.
But I will.
It's a compliment.
I'm going to have to explain it to you later. But I had to literally have that conversation because she would have been like, "What the hell
Who
is
am I
going
working
on?"
Right.
for?
Right, and so I've kind of almost had enough of people and I love our defense bar, but people coming up and the drama of all this. I think on some level we enjoy it because it adds some spice to life. But
Sure.
God, we're all so busy.
Yeah.
And
Right.
this is just such a
distraction.
stupid thing for everybody to be spending their time
Don't
and
disagree.
treasure on. Not us tonight, because it was important to talk about it. But
Yeah.
Thanks
for saving me on that one.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It's like, just give a shout to it. Toby's over it, so. Okay, we can segue into a little bit other kind of topic that's
Yeah.
still on the same thing, which is why they get so personal about their cases.
Sure.
Especially, because the other thing that I also feel like is this is somebody who spends most of their time in misdemeanor courts.
It feels that way.
If this was put together by a prosecutor, the list of people who are on here, you got plenty of attorneys, Josh Schaefer, Grant Shiner, who go up in the district
Eddie
courts.
Cortez.
Yeah, Eddie Cortez, are you kidding?
What's happening here?
Slays them everywhere.
Yeah.
But there's several on here who I don't see in district court at all.
Yeah.
So I think that this did maybe, if it came from the district attorney's office, then it's probably a misdemeanor land.
Yeah, look, in terms of them, why they get so personal, and look, there's
Sure,
a lot
they're all different.
There's different personalities
Yeah.
within that office and within the defense bar. I mean, I think that goes without saying.
But we were all talking before the show started about anecdotes that we have, and we got more and more and more
100%.
of prosecutors who just pounding on tables, throwing papers around, just getting angry when there's a ruling against them.
Yeah, and I think, in particular, I'm not going to slander a whole class of DA hires.
We're just talking about those.
Well, no, I know,
Oh,
but
okay.
the pre-commits now, not the newest ones, but the ones that came in last fall. I mean, this was the generation of folks that were making the little videos on their DA channel. And if you watch those videos before they disbanded them, they did 4 or 5 little podcasts with new prosecutors. And these were all well-meaning interviews with new lawyers kids, basically. But the theme of it all was like, come here, you're gonna try cases, you know, you can try cases 2 days into your career, try cases. And I don't know what the recruiting pitch was.
Not very well.
Well, I mean, literally, there would be interviews that were like, the person conducting the interviews would say, oh, you could try a case 2 days into your career. And it was like a giddy thing. And I think whatever the recruiting pitch was to those folks, there became sort of not a group think, but a kind of common bond among those new hires that we're going to come in here and we're not going to take any crap from these people because we're coming here to try cases and, you know, real aggressive and rah-rah. And they tried a lot of cases, particularly misdemeanor land. Didn't go well,
Right.
necessarily.
About
But
60%
then
of the time.
it wasn't like learning from that. It was more like, you know, trying to find reasons to get mad at people or angry at people, not trying to learn from the lawyers. And look, I wrote one of those lawyers a handwritten note after our trial, and I told her, you are going to be a great lawyer. You are as prepared as any young prosecutor I've seen. She lost a motion to suppress because her cop just flopped on the stand. Wasn't really her fault. But I thought she did a great job and her presentation was wonderful. And you know, she responded well to that. And there are exceptions to this rule, but I think in general what we've encountered is a just real dedication to this idea that we're going to be different. And the defense guys are the enemy, you know. And I think we all felt that at the end of last year. And I think some of us thought, well, this is the end of the Kim Ogg administration and that's what's going on here. But what we didn't really think about was actually it's the end of the Kim Ogg administration, but it's also the first days of these particular new hires that have maybe been hired under the Ogg mindset or whatever that recruiting pitch was. Right. And there's some of that to that. I think that's why we encounter some of that. And they're decent people. That's just what they've been brought up to think.
Just kind of came in thinking they're supposed to be like a firebrand or something
100%.
in the office?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's why a lot of people were like, oh, I'm trying this case. I'm trying this stupid case, and I'm going to, even though I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to try it in this aggressive way that if you beat me, I'm going to be mad about it. You know, just there's a lot of that going on. And I hope, and I think the folks at the DA's office have talked about not curing the advocacy on that side, because you know what? If I were a prosecutor in some parallel universe, you know, me and Brian Garris talk about it all the time. If we became prosecutors, we would get rid of 90% of the crap and we would prosecute the people that need to be prosecuted to the extent those exist, and we'd prosecute the hell out of them. And that's what we would do. We wouldn't waste our time with the people that shouldn't be prosecuted. So maybe I'd be that way too. So I can't totally slander them, but that mindset is really, really hard to break in terms of growing to have a better community with the defense lawyers, seeing that we're not all enemies here. And in fact, a lot of y'all are going to end up wanting to come to our side here at some point.
Right.
And want to be welcomed with open arms.
Yeah, they don't think that far ahead. Like when they make these things, that one day I'm going to probably be on that side.
Sure.
Right.
Like very few prosecutors start and then retire as prosecutors, right?
Yeah.
So,
And I'll say one thing about like why they take things personal. I don't know, but me personally, I would say, you know, if you're taking this personal or if you're having a personal outlook on it, I don't think this is the job for you.
yeah.
Correct.
I think I became a lawyer to help people. It's not really about my personal feelings about it. Even when we're dealing with cases, we all have clients, we all have cases that, oh, if we had our pick of the litter, but we don't because we took an oath. So it's not about me. It's not about the DA, how the DA thinks about me. It's about the advocacy and what we signed up to do, and it's about the client. It's not about me.
That's why I was thinking when Kobe was saying, if I was a prosecutor, I'd be able to find the 10% that we should actually prosecute. And like, it's easy to say when we know them.
That's
when they're
right.
our client.
I get it.
But when you're them, when you're the prosecutor and all you have is like the piece of paper, I don't, because they don't know. Like they have no clue when they have like a truly bad person and that I'm representing, and I'm not gonna tell them, but I'm like, we wanna get this one dismissed, and they're like, okay, you know, we'll dismiss it, if blah, 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 blah. And then it's dismissed, and I'm like, they have no clue. Like, and then the ones that are black and white looks real bad, and they're like the most redeeming person ever, and they're like 60 days in the Harris County Jail.
Yeah.
Hard pass.
Like 10 years on a max 10-year prison sentence. Like, okay, we'll go to trial, guys. Like, come on.
And sometimes they don't really focus on what they're supposed to focus on, like
That.
the community. So they take it like personal, as we can clearly see as the list, to a person. Your job is to focus on what's best for the community. I see a lot of times where they're not thinking about it.
Right.
And I'm not going to say, well, let me take you to the Constitution, or let's go over this and let's look over this, because I would think you already know that.
Exactly.
But you're so focused on me actually doing my job that you can't do your own.
Right.
And so I think that sometimes is what makes it so difficult.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that they focus on those things. It's the wrong thing to focus on. I also think that a lot of times they prosecute too often. I don't want to say a lot of times they prosecute. Too often prosecutors prosecute based on what they think, feel, or believe
Right.
happened in a situation, regardless of what the evidence actually shows. And so that's one thing that I tell my clients is that on defense, we're like a basketball team on defense. That basketball is the evidence, and the rim is reasonable doubt.
Right.
All they're trying to do is get that ball past me and above the rim and back down through the hoop. All I have to do is stop them from doing that.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how I do it.
Yeah.
I just stop them from doing that. So we don't need to go in there and prove anything.
Right.
I don't need to I don't even need to know what you tell me happened. I just go in there and see if they can get across the finish line. I don't think they can.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they can't because they're running off on what they think happened. I'm like, let's just look at the evidence over here.
Right.
Y'all are way over there.
Well, I tell my clients, sometimes my clients will look at me all funny when I'm playing the role of prosecutor in my process, right? Seeing it from both sides, and I have to tell them, I'm just, I'm playing devil's advocate. My clients get a little worried, but I think sometimes, and one of the problems I think they're trying to fix over in that office is some of us who have been around a little bit longer. I haven't been around as long as you, and you haven't been around as long as others.
I've been licensed longer than you?
I don't know.
Really?
When?
Maybe the mustache makes you look older.
Maybe. It's a true who could say situation. But, look, sometimes I think we remember times where there were older chiefs in these misdemeanor courts that understood what that case was going to look like when it plays out in the drama of the courtroom. Because trials don't happen on paper, they're through live witnesses. Right. And when you bring an assault case and I impeach your complainant with the evidence that he had an aggravated robbery conviction, and he put a gun to a woman's head at a Burger King, right, and forced her into the freezer. And when I say to him, and you put that gun to her temple, and he says, I didn't put it to her temple, and I get to ask the follow-up of what part of her head did you point the gun at, the game is over.
Right.
Right. That trial should have never happened. And honestly, a prosecutor looked at me.
Because that's you cross-examining the supposed complainant.
The supposed complainant who two
Right.
adult black males who get in a fight over a pizza delivery, that it's just the kind of case that is never
Right.
going to be. He knows a lot about that case. At any rate, may have passed it along to me before I got it. But that case ends up getting dismissed because the chief looked at me, and I kid you not, this was the moment the case got dismissed. They went back and reevaluated it. We took a break, and my client needed to go to the bathroom. And I said, Judge, the client's to go to the bathroom. And the prosecutor came up to me and said, the complainant's out there, so tell your client, when he goes out, to go to the bathroom, and I stopped her and I said, if you're worried that your complainant is going to fight my client when he walks into the hall, that is your sign.
Right.
And they came back and dismissed the case.
Oh, that's
But it was a common sense moment, but
Yeah.
that's something that they should have thought about how
Right.
that was going to play out, and it was really a problem of experience. When it got clear in the trial that the walls were crumbling, Kobe's standing on chairs, shouting, I was really in my bag that trial. Too much. It was too much. But, we have this thing playing out in this courtroom where everybody's looking around going,
Right.
is that guy going to come across the rail and fight the defense lawyer? They couldn't anticipate, and it was in part because they didn't have a client meeting with that guy. That's problem one, preparation.
He wanted to fight you?
Well, yeah, sure.
The complainant.
The complainant. He was,
No.
and I approached him with an exhibit, and I did this for the jury, and I said, sir, I just want to let you know before I come up here that I'm going to bring you a piece of paper, and I'm going to walk very slowly. I don't mean you any harm. If I was a prosecutor, I'd have objected. Of course, they
Right,
would sit
sure.
there quiet. But it was to put on a show for the jury
Yeah,
who
yeah.
understood that hostility
They
toward
can
me.
see,
Sure.
Well, tell them all your secrets.
No,
Yeah.
I got new secrets. But that one was a pretty obvious one, what was happening there. And I felt the need to do that because of the way he was acting toward me.
Oh, yeah,
the jury
yeah,
felt it, the judge felt it, everybody, the bailiffs were going, you know.
Do you have to walk? Do you have to approach?
That's
Like,
right. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
and so, but anyway, that was just one example of sort of not really having the experience to see how all these dynamics that were they're not hidden. You should see his criminal history, but not seeing how that was actually going to play out in the drama of a trial.
Right.
And so the more experience you get down there, hopefully someone will look at these things and think to themselves, hey, can we avoid this mess, like with this particular trial, on DWIs, on all kind of stuff, right? And see I saw. Somebody may say, I had a case like this 2 years ago, and here's how it played out. So maybe this isn't one we want to go on. But I don't know that that's necessarily happening when the Chiefs, unfortunately, have
been there for 2 years.
I think
have
that's
one more year
really
of
true,
experience,
yeah.
right?
Because you're the evaluation piece of it. They're like, can you show me exactly what to evaluate? So then again, it goes to the fact that it's not our job to do both jobs.
Right.
Because we can't evaluate the case for everyone, you know, like, so we're supposed to evaluate for our client and evaluate for you. And I understand that people have like a high workload, right? But we do as well. So it kind of just makes it very difficult. I think that's sometimes why cases are set for trial, because they don't have the time to fully evaluate it. So they're just like, oh, just take it. We offer you this horrible deal. This is what you have. Like, did you even read anything?
And all they read is the dim summary.
Right. I had one the other day. She was like, I'm giving her 90 days in jail because we have the medical records. The medical records literally said that their complaining witness left the hospital.
Discharge papers.
Yes. She didn't even stay. She didn't even see it. I'm like, so.
So now that offer went up because medical records came in from the hospital.
Yeah, she was like, well, 90 days jail time.
I like the sports analogy you used. Mine, I think, is Francisco Lindor talks about this. He plays shortstop for the Mets. He's like, play offense on defense. And I think, right, so it's like instead of waiting for the ball to come to you, like go to it. So instead of like us or waiting to see what the DA is going to
you
give
got to
us.
stay on the ball in
Right.
basketball.
Right.
Right.
I'll tell you the whole analogy when we're off.
Yeah.
But no, and you can steal it because it's the only thing that I've ever come up that's original thought is
Yeah.
my basketball analogy for how we do our job.
You got to be careful with sports analogies, you know.
Yeah.
There's a very good lawyer that I knew. He's actually in my office. He won an indecency trial recently. So
Okay.
I'm not bagging on him. Just tell you a story. It was during COVID, back when you had to wear the things when you're over at the Astrodome or whatever. Everybody, y'all don't remember this, you weren't doing it, but the jurors would have headphones.
NRG jury selection.
Yeah, they had headphones.
I didn't know that.
Really?
So
It was
it's one of my dear friends.
During
Troy Lock-
COVID?
It was like
During COVID.
they had to do social distancing for jury selection, so we had to do it in like Reliant.
Sure. And everybody had headphones so they could hear what you're saying.
And they're in like
Right.
you can't even see their face.
Sure.
Oh,
They have
wow.
visors on, masks,
And these headphones. So
headsets.
Troy Locklear, because this is a funny story. One of my dear friends and mentors, love him to death. He likes sports analogies. So he looks at this older Asian woman on the jury and hits her with the baseball analogy, the play at the plate. And I mean, he's doing it. He's giving the long thing, and she hears it, you know, and he says, well, what do you think, ma'am? Or it's something about reasonable doubt, whatever. And she's like, I don't know what any of that means. I don't watch sports. Now, his internal monologue, Troy might have done this in another trial where he didn't have the headset. And he went, God, it was so stupid. I shouldn't have asked that question, but kind of forgot that he had the headset on.
He was mic'd
so
up.
that everybody hears it, right? And
I
Brian,
never heard that.
Brian Garris was trying this case with him and had the headset on and was like, you know, but
Troy
Troy.
could hear you, and everyone's hearing
Well,
that.
the wonderful thing about Troy is that he's incredibly charming and also
Right.
Sure.
totally 100% himself. So I'm sure it was endearing to the jury in some way that he was that vulnerable.
Right.
But you know, with sports analogies, be careful who you're choosing
Your
with your
audience.
analogy.
Right. Who you're directing it at.
Read the room.
Yeah.
I have when I do it with clients, I'll be like, okay, do you know basketball? And then sometimes they're like, no. I'm like, okay, have you ever watched a basketball game? They're like, no. Soccer? It doesn't work with football or baseball, but soccer and basketball I can make it. No? Okay. So here's burden of proof, reasonable doubt. Sorry, I'm looking at myself.
It's okay, you're doing great.
I'm actually
You're the
watching the time
moderator,
count.
You're doing great.
We have a time. I was like, how much time does Kobe have to tell this anecdote? Oh, you have more time if you want to tell more anecdotes.
I got anybody who needs a good Troy Locklear story.
There's a few of them.
It's just one of the more wonderful. I love the defense bar. The trial I just had yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever it was, there had to be at least 10 lawyers like mulling around in there, and maybe 4, 5, 6 of them that stayed and watched the whole thing. And then we would come out and they would bounce ideas off, and we were all kind of became this little team.
Oh, well.
It was cool. And I do that in people's trials sometimes. There's interesting. I don't go up to somebody and say, hey, here's an idea. But if they want to ask me something, I'm there. And I went and I shook everybody's hand because I said, this is what I really love about the defense bar, is that we are all, I mean, you're at an office, but most of us are solos. But when it comes to trial time, because we all care about the same thing, which is our clients and making them work, we become this one firm. Nobody's in there getting paid.
Yeah.
They're just there because they want to learn, just like I do when I go watch
Right.
someone do a voir dire who I've heard is wonderful, and they want to help, right? And the defense bar is really, really cool, and it's full of characters with all these perspectives. Troy is one of those, which
Yeah.
is why I love having him in our office so much, because he's just this different kind of cat. But there's so many of those. And I just thought about it as I went home. I was like, this is why this profession is good. And it kind of takes us back to where we started tonight, which is that you put out that thing about defense lawyers, and we all kind of got together and turned it into our thing. You can't drive a wedge. There will be no wedge. Like, Diablo's United, right?
Devils forever.
Agreed.
I heard that we are going to be doing a softball game against the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association against the Harris County District Attorney's Office.
Oh, boy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and apparently our team name is going to be Los Diablos.
Is that actually true, or are you making that up right now?
Are you
If it's
on
not true, let's make it true.
it wasn't my idea. It was our president's idea. Britt Mayer came up with that.
I love that.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's going to get shirts made.
Oh, boy.
So, are you a formal member of HUCLA?
No, I'm not.
So tomorrow you will be?
Yes, tomorrow I will
And
be.
Dela, you are, right?
Yeah.
No, I need to join.
Tomorrow? Okay. All right, we got 2 future members here with us.
I like that.
Great.
Nice.
So we've got just a couple minutes left. Closing thoughts, Ms. Spears?
I think I said it all.
You got them all in? Okay. Kobe, any other closing thoughts?
I don't know. I wish for this. The most wonderful speech at our banquet was from Clay Conrad, who was so simple and short, and it was perfectly him. And he said, all I've ever wanted is for this criminal justice system to be less cruel. And I think there's a lot of people who share that thought, particularly in the higher ups of the DA's office on both sides. There's some good people working, and what I would encourage those good people that we know to do is to make sure that we're instilling those values in the young ones who haven't quite figured it out yet.
Right.
Because
I agree.
yeah.
Sean's compassion and anti-cruelty was Sean's campaign.
Sure.
Right, and I believe that's true to him, and I think that he's a good leadership for that office, and his top brass is to it does need to trickle down. Neil, closing thoughts?
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's about the client. It's about the work that we do. I'm just looking forward to continuing to practice, having people like Kobe and Daylight as my peer, and continuing to win cases.
I'd like to hear that. Okay. Well, I think that's all we've got tonight. So, Mark, I hope I'm not too early, but on behalf of Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association, thanks to everyone for watching tonight. We'll be back in 2 weeks.
See ya.